If you a sneakerhead, homie, put your hands in the air. Close your eyes and reminisce about your favorite pair. Take a minute to answer, cause the question ain't fair. Probably had 2 or 3 that you love to wear. Probably had 1 or 2 that was multiple pairs. And probably had 1 pair that you never would wear. Yeah, you know what I mean. All you sneakerheads, here we go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. I am Casey, the remix schedule. Little switch up here. We are talking about the Dallas Mavericks, of course, on the solo, but you're going to see this on 2 different podcast sites now. So, first, On Time Sports Talk, my original, and I just joined my new friends, Kyle and Juan, on a new podcast called The Last Call. And so this is going to be on that YouTube channel as well as uh, our On Time Sports Talk YouTube channel. So you can find it either. Find it on Spotify, all those good places. And so I just wanted to give y'all a heads up on that. So, I'm really excited getting Last Call Sports off the ground. On Time Sports Talk has been really successful since me and my dad have started it. And I think Last Call is going to give a little different flavor mixed in with definitely some comedy in there. So let's get to talking Dallas Mavericks. So we're 2 games into the series, and I told y'all, I hope y'all have been listening. I told y'all the Mavericks, they're dangerous. And ultimately, because you got once again 2 out of the best 3 stars in the series. Now, Anthony Edwards, we gonna talk about some Anthony Edwards, buddy. Oh, buddy. All right, but we're gonna get to that after the games. All right. So let's talk about game 1. All right, Kyrie came out on fire, probably because of what Anthony Edwards decided to say. Like I said, we're gonna get to that a little later. But first quarter, Minnesota uh, actually led 16-8. And so it wasn't it was not a bad start by the Mavs. I think it was pretty much what you expected. Kind of take a punch in the face in the first game on the road in their house. But like I said, Kyrie came out aggressive. He really took Anthony Edwards' comments personally. I think it was a back and forth. It was a high scoring first quarter, 33-27, I believe is what it ended as. And that 3 by Anthony Edwards at the end of the first quarter, it was like a little pinprick. Like, I don't know if y'all ever saw the movie Pearl Harbor. Not the best movie in the world, but when they were talking about the Doolittle raid, he says this won't even really matter, but it will be a pinprick straight through their heart. And man, that's what I was scared that 3 that Anthony Edwards hit at the end of the first quarter. I was like, that might get him really going. Which it did not. You'll kind of see the Anthony Edwards. He's one of the faces of the league, and he's not showing up right now. Like I said, we're gonna get more than that. Moving on, but Minnesota came out hot. That continued into the second quarter. Jump ball by Gafford. Like, this was the type of the night that it was that I think most Mavericks fans was like, it's not going to be our night. Game 1 on the road, a lot of issues that come with that. When Gafford wins the jump ball, like, clearly it wasn't even a competition. He wins the jump ball, goes to like the left of, I think it was Luka, and Minnesota player gets it, runs it down, uh, ends up dunking it. They go up 39-32 with that score. And I was like, I don't, I was worried. I'll be honest, but in road games, really what you want to do is, and I kind of tweeted this a couple times last night during game 2 was you just want to keep it within striking distance and then let your guys be able to take over. And so Dallas was hanging around. And speaking of that pin prick through the heart, you almost had it from Anthony Edwards again at the end of the second quarter. He hit a big 3 there. Kyrie ends up getting an and one in the half, and it ends up being 62-59 instead of 62 potentially 56. It's not a big difference, but every point matters at this point in the playoffs. And so after halftime, kind of reset, and third order, if I could talk, third order, I don't even know what that is. Third quarter comes out, and bam, right to Gafford. And I'm telling y'all right now, I'm calling it. Look, and this is with, like, I've never seen a lob team like that Clippers team with Paul, DeAndre, and obviously Blake Griffin and those boys. That was Lob City. Dallas is the new Lob City. I'm calling it right now. I'm coining it right now. All right. You saw it here first. Dallas is the new Lob City. It's 2.0. It's not replacing. It's not better. I don't think it's better than the Clippers Lob City, but it's the new Lob City with Lively, Gafford, Derrick Jones, all those boys. I mean, they flying through the air, and I mean, Gafford just goes up there and boom! It was nasty. It was a nasty dunk. I think it really set the tone for the second half for the Mavs, saying, "Yeah, we're on the road. It's game one. We're here to play. Let's roll. Let's do this." And one of the strategic things that was killing the Timberwolves that I really didn't understand why they didn't go back to it in game two was started. Excuse me. Starting in the third quarter, they stopped doing their drop coverage on the pick and rolls and started blitzing whoever the ball handler was, especially Luka, and it seemed to be effective. And they never really went back to it in the second game, in which we'll get to the second game here in a bit. But they switched up their coverage. They started blitzing the screen, and it ended up being a good move by Minnesota. They caused some turnovers out of it. They made the looks a little more difficult. When you try to make a Gafford or Derrick Jones or whoever is setting that screen or Lively, um, when when you throw the ball into the middle of the court and make them be a playmaker, well, you obviously, if you're Minnesota, it's just basketball sense to sit here and go, hey, we want that guy to be a playmaker, not Luka being the playmaker or Kyrie being the playmaker. And um, so good move on Minnesota's part. Didn't translate to a win in game one. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I saw this. I think I saw is it on Facebook or Twitter, but it said high school coaches are rejoicing watching that a fast break, and that fast break, man, it was gorgeous. It was in the third quarter. Started off a missed shot. It was PJ Washington gets the rebound. He kicks it ahead to Kyrie. Kyrie kicks it ahead to Lively, and Lively hits Derrick Jones Jr. for the dunk. Ball never touches the ground. Like that's what basketball is supposed to look like. And as a coach, which I think I forgot to mention, this is for Last Call Sports and stuff. This is called the Coach's Corner, I guess. My solos, but here is you know that was beautiful to see, and that's really what basketball is supposed to look like. The ball movement. There's a lot of isolation stuff I don't like in the game, especially in the NBA. And kids on the lower levels, high school, college, they try to be an ISO guy or just pick and rolls, and part of that is the rules and how it's set up. But ultimately, uh, I do that was that was probably my favorite play from the night. I'll be honest, just as a coach. Um, back and forth, third, back and forth. They would have a run. Mavs would have a run. Ends up 83-82. So, you know, interesting high scoring games for what are supposed to be two really good defensive teams. Now, they barely get over 100. The final score is 108-105 Dallas. Spoiler alert. But, um, you know, anything under 110, I don't think is a high scoring game in today's game. I'll be honest, I really like the Thunder Mavericks series. Reminded me back when basketball that I was growing up watching. I was getting nostalgic with that. Um, you know, but it's fun to see guys making shots and making plays. And ultimately, that's what you want to see, right? And so you move into the fourth quarter, you're Dallas, you're down by 1 point, and Minnesota comes out strong in the fourth. They take a 5, 6, 7, 8 point lead at that point, and you're if you're Dallas, you're just wanting to survive the run. You just want to survive these runs that are happening with Dallas, or I'm sorry, with the Timberwolves, and keep it within 5 to 8 points with about 3 minutes left. That's really your goal. And really, after Minnesota comes out strong, Doncic goes on a personal 7-0 run. He starts looking like the best player left in the playoffs, and the guy that should have been the MVP. And one of those strategic things that, especially game two, when we get to game two, you didn't see very much, but I thought was really effective in this game for Minnesota. Not only the blitzing the screens, but the big to big pick and roll. And I thought that was really deadly for them in game one. And last night I didn't really see it very much. And so ultimately, I was kind of wondering what their coaching staff was thinking about. Was, all right, do we want to save this? Do we think we can steal this win without going back to our bag of tricks there? And I think for Minnesota, which I think game three is obviously a must win, being down 0-2, they need to go back to blitzing the pick and rolls. And not every time, I would say, but you got to pick your spots, and you got to do it probably 55 to 60% of the time. And then on the other side of it, I think you need to explore and attack more with that big and big pick and roll, especially if you catch the the big switching up onto the ball handler. And then you got a bigger guy rolling to the hole that can catch the lob and finish over. Most of the time, it's been PJ Washington. Um, and one of those things that'll help the Mavericks in that situation, if he comes back. I haven't heard anything if Maxi Kleber comes back. And I think it'll be interesting how they integrate him into the series if he's back at all. So, game of runs, obviously, Mavericks make the final run. Some really inexcusable turnovers by Minnesota towards the end, and that actually happened in both games. Anthony Edwards had some bad ones in game two. Kind of the final stats from game one. PJ Washington he's come back down to earth. If I was probably caught up in the last series of he's becoming a dude, and this is where you make that step. He's coming back to earth, and I probably shouldn't have been too like excited about PJ. He's a good player. I love his defense. I think he has the potential to be a 15-point scorer a game guy. But he ends up having 13 last night. Jones ends up having 8. Gafford 10 and 9. Luka 33 and Kyrie 30. So when your big dogs are doing that, and Lively had 9 and 11 boards, which was massive as well. So game one, Mavericks end up pulling it out, obviously. And man, Anthony Edwards, you were telling Denver to bring your ass here. You were saying, I got Kyrie. And then in the post-game conference after game one, you'd be like, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. And then everyone during the game, they're saying you look fatigued. And then you got Reggie Miller saying something's not right with Anthony Edwards. And then in game two, it's more of the same. Homie, this is what you were supposed to be built for. I don't want the excuse that he's never been this far in the playoffs. Not all the adrenaline and motivation and drive to get to this point pushes you to your point, past your point of exhaustion. And it's the players who can play past that point of exhaustion at a high level that become legends. And right now, you're going to get labeled the guy who got tired. That's what he's going to get labeled. Right now, he's going to be the guy who got tired, especially if they lose in 4 or 5 games. I really thought this series was going 7. I don't think it's going 7 anymore. I picked Dallas in 7. I think it might be a 5 game, a gentleman's sweep. I don't know. Game 3 is going to have a huge, huge indication on how that happens. But Anthony Edwards, man, you can't be out here talking to this mess, saying I got him or whatever it is, and then after the game, you're gonna sit there and say I'm exhausted. I'm sorry, that's just foul, man. Like, stop it. You're one of the best players in the world. We all know it. You're becoming one of the faces of the NBA. Stop it with the I'm exhausted bullshit. All right, just stop. Like, no one wants to hear that. Stop making excuses why you couldn't guard Kyrie, a guy who's 10 years older than you. You couldn't guard. All right. Yes, he's one of the best ball handlers of all time. One of the best finishers around the rim all time. He's running around, and you look like a little kid trying to catch up with his dad or something like that. Just stop. Like, stop guarding Kyrie. Like, if it's gonna make you that tired, find someone else to guard. Go guard Derrick Jones Jr. Go guard PJ Washington. I don't care. But don't sit here and say, I got him, and you get roasted and then say, oh, I'm exhausted. We're tired. I don't care you went 7 games last round. I don't care the Nuggets beat y'all up. Everyone's beat up. Yeah, Mavericks finished earlier. They got a little more rest than you. Get over it. Make the damn plays. Or say, hey, he schooled me. I got to get better next time. Which you weren't better next time. Which, let's go to game 2. All right. Game 2, Mavericks pull it out 109-108. I really wasn't sure the Mavs were going to pull this one out. Now, I do want to have a caveat on all this. Is Minnesota's exhausted, apparently. They've lost both games by a total of 4 points. So there's not, I think as a Minnesota Timberwolves fan, you got to be somewhat encouraged that the Dallas Mavericks stars in both games are playing like they should, and you've only lost by 4 points total. So I don't think that can be overstated. But big players from game 2, man. Obviously, Luka with 32, and we're going to get to Luka talking mess later. I loved it. Kyrie having 20, Derek Lively 14-9, Gafford ended up with 16-5, PJ in double figures with 10 again. So overall, a more balanced attack versus game 1 from Dallas. I really, really did not like the start of the game for the Mavericks. Everything was coming. Minnesota's defense did really show up in the first half. Well, really, generally the whole game. I thought there was some sloppy play in the second half by both teams. Just kind of some helter-skelter stuff. But in the first quarter, especially, I really, thought everything was coming hard for the Mavericks. They were making shots, but ultimately, to me, everything was coming hard. They ended up getting down 32-26 after the first quarter. And, like I said in game 1, for game 2, you have to be, you want to keep it within striking distance. And that's what the Mavericks did all game. And early in the game, the Mavericks were, freaking Swiss cheese defense, man. Absolutely, just you get a layup, you get an open look, you get a layup. Like, I was like, come on, y'all. And you're still down 6 going into the second quarter. You go into the second quarter, you end up losing the second quarter as well. And 22 to 20 or 22 to 28. So you end up down 12 going into halftime. I really didn't know. I really didn't know how the Mavericks were going to pull it out. You got Derrick Jones Jr. trying to be Luka in transition. Anthony Edwards swatting your stuff and then taking it down on the other end and then hitting the shot. And so, Minnesota came out like they should. and because I think they knew in the back of their head that they got to win this tonight's game, or it's going to be tough sledding. As we all know, you go down 2-0, it's always tough sledding. To win the series and ultimately go compete for a championship. Um, and so you want to, they get the big lead, and it becomes a chip away, chip away, chip away, second, third, and fourth quarter, and then the Mavericks end up taking the lead in the fourth. And I kind of said, at one point in kind of the second quarter, I think I was like, "Oh, Luka's got the look. Luka's got the look." And then a little later, Kyrie had the look, because he scored most of his points in the second half um, there. And ultimately, what was really frustrating was the free throws. Free throws took care of themselves in game one, 16 for 17, I think. And I was like, all right, maybe we're gonna start leveling off. It was Strugglesville last night when it came to free throws. End up 15 for 22, 68%. Not liking that. But here's the positive that I think Minnesota's got to be frustrated with is both games the Mavericks as a smaller team have out rebounded them. They got 2 7-footers generally on the floor all the time, which by the way, they took Cat off the floor for the majority of the fourth quarter. I thought that was an interesting strategic move by Minnesota, and left obviously Gobert to guard Doncic for the final shot, which we'll talk about here in a second. But down the stretch, Mavericks end up taking the lead, and then it's kind of I think there was 11 lead changes in the fourth quarter, and then just like game one, just some bad turnovers by Minnesota, especially Anthony Edwards, the one where he drives and gets caught and throws it in the stands, and oh man, that was terrible. And I know a lot of people got a problem with the review that it was out of bounds, but Kyrie fouled the guy. Um, if the ref didn't call a foul initially, I don't think you should be able to review it to see if there was a foul there. Like I kind of agree with how it is now. I know a lot of people are like, oh, if you see a foul, you should be able to do a foul or call a foul. I'm not arguing. He clearly fouled him, but you're opening a whole Pandora's box with that, and I think you got to be careful with that. So at the end, back and forth comes down to who's going to get the ball. And I love Luka's post game interview, and he's like, "We don't determine if it's just going to be me or Kyrie. We see what the defense is going to give us." And they give the ball to Luka. Minnesota, for some reason, has Rudy Gobert in the game. Defensive Player of the Year, my ass. Just because you can block some shots and rebound, that needs to stop being the main thing on Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sorry. This game is so perimeter oriented. The fact that Kawhi is the only non-big guy that's won Defensive Player of the Year in recent memory, the criteria needs to change because I don't. Yeah, he's a big guy, Defensive Player of the Year, but he can't guard the perimeter. By evidence of Luka saying, "Hey, he moves slow. I move slow, but or something to the fact of he moves slow, but I can move just a little bit faster than him." Facts, man. That's old man basketball at the gym down the road. You may not be able to move fast, but you can move faster than the guy in front of you, or you're a little more crafty than the guy in front of you. That was pretty classic. And man, Luka talking best. I loved it. I don't know about not necessarily a fan of what he said, but I love the fire. I love the fight. I love like in the heat of the moment. That's as basketball players. That's what we do. When I was in Cuba, some dude said, switched on to me after I hit a couple shots, and I was like, "Why are you switching on to me?" He's all like, I'm not worried about you. You're garbage." I hit the game winning three on him, and I told him, "Hey, I guess I took the garbage to the dump, huh?" Yeah, it guard me, and you gonna be left in the I forgot my train of thought in the dumpster in the landfill. That's what I was thinking. That's what I was the landfill. But anyways, like I love the talking smack piece of that. And and I love how he was just kind of quiet and humble after. Like he was Luka Doncic, the competitor superstar in the moment of the "don't come at me because you f around and you're gonna find out" type moment, and telling Rudy Gobert you can't effing guard me. He can't. That's just a fact. And he hits the three to go for the win when they didn't have to, but it was his spot. It's his shot. I'm amazed by his step back. Like, I mean, I used to try the step back in the day, and I got benched for it all the time. Thanks, Coach Gonzalez. But, incredible shot making there by Luka Doncic. Um, Bad strategic part of it for Minnesota. And they pull out game two, go up 2-0. Um, First game at home, Minnesota's desperate. I think that game goes one of two ways. I think it's either a blowout or it's another nail biter, and it's going to come down to the three stars on the court: Anthony Edwards and Luka and Kyrie. And I think Minnesota's got to look at their strategic plan. I think they need to go back to more big pick and roll, blitzing that pick and roll by Dallas about 60% of the time, like I said earlier. And I think they need to focus on rebounding. Of course, the Mavericks have out rebounded in Minnesota, but they haven't necessarily been fundamental in their rebounding either. Um, Offensive rebounds, they gave up 12. They actually lost that. The Mavericks did 12-11. And so, and a lot of those are by Cat and Rudy following it, for, dunk tips or tip dunks and stuff like that. So I think that needs to be addressed by the Mavs too. But a lot of credit to Jason Kidd in this realm. And, in his strategic difference, things he's switched up. 4 or 5 months ago in Dallas, everyone was saying they should fire Jason Kidd. I wasn't at that point, but uh, the inventiveness didn't look very great. Um, and obviously the defense was horrible before the trade. But that also should tell you, before you jump at the coach, you might want to jump at the GM on how a team is put together as well. So kudos to Nico Harrison and that group to putting this team together, as well as Jason Kidd actually stepping into what a lot of people were saying, oh, maybe we need to give Jason Kidd credit, which I think you do. So, preview for game three. Like I said, I think it's either going to be a blowout by Dallas or it's going to come down to the end, which I think Minnesota could pull that out. I think that's really I don't think you're going to see any blowouts in this series either way, unless it's just a complete give up job by one team. Which Minnesota, if they get down 10, 15, maybe even 20, which a 20-point league in today's league isn't that big. 20-point league in 97, you were dead forever. But in today, you can fight back. It'll be interesting to see if something happens like that, they get down early, do they come back and uh, do they fold, or do they fight back and try to claw one out? Uh, Mumbo jumbo in my words. I apologize. So I think that's going to wrap us up. I'll do my next episode after game 4. We'll see where we're at. I have a feeling the Mavs are going to be up 3-1 after 4 games. I think Minnesota will win one out of the next 2. And we'll see where we go from there. I think it'll be Mavs in 5 or 6 now. And it's definitely not going 7. So, as I always do, shout out to Mission 22. And getting the awareness out there to give my fellow vets the support they need. If you don't know, 22 veterans commit suicide every day because they feel like, something's driving them to that point. And ultimately, I think it's actually the average is 24 now. So, one is too many. One is too many. We got Memorial Day coming up this weekend and in a couple days, and we miss every single one of them. So it's a tough weekend for a lot of vets. a lot of us have lost people we know, so keep that in mind. Shout out to Tel Valhalla Project, who supports a lot to Mission 22, um, as well. It does a lot for families of fallen soldier, sailors, and Marines. And shout out to Camp Hope and everything they're doing. So, um, yeah, that's all I got. Don't forget, On Time Sports Talk and Last Call Sports. This will be on it. And appreciate y'all listening if you made it all 30 minutes, or if you only made it 5. Maybe this is the last 5 or the only 5 you listen to. But appreciate it. Peace. Love y'all. I'm out.